My next guest, once again, picking up another big win last Saturday at UFC Nashville, taking out Rob Font by decision. It is Cory Sandhagen back here on the program. Cory, how are you?
Hey, I'm good, James. How you doing?
Doing awesome. So last time you and I talked, you had a different opponent. You were supposed to fight Umar Nurmagomedov. He's out. Rob Font is in. I kind of wanted to start there because we didn't get a chance to sort of do a follow-up there. I know the fight was at 140. What came to that decision? Was that a call on your end or on Rob's end? How did you guys settle on 140? I was curious about that.
So Rob wanted it to be a 3-round fight in the UFC, and I were both just like no way, like the main event's got to be 5 rounds.
Mhm.
And then he asked for it to be at 140, and I was like, I mean, you were getting ready for Song, like let's still do it at 35, and he was like, no, like 140, and I was like, okay, cool,
Yeah.
that's fine. Like if you're gonna step up and fight on 2.5 weeks notice, kind of, even though he was still kind of in camp, we could do it at 140, and I'm not gonna complain too much.
Interesting. When Umar was out, were you ever worried that you wouldn't get to fight on this card? Because obviously you have the wedding coming up. There's a lot of things sort of going on. Did that cross your mind at all that maybe you wouldn't get to fight?
Yeah, I mean, it crossed my mind, but almost immediately they like brought up Font's name, so it wasn't like I was kind of in limbo for a little bit because limbo is kind of the worst spot to be in MMA. But no, they were like, "Hey, Umar pulled out, but we have Font," and I was like, "I thought he was scheduled to fight Song," and they were like, "Well, Song's a little bit injured, so they were going to push that fight back anyway." So yeah, it was, and I knew Font would step up because Font's just like a gangster of a dude. So yeah, I wasn't ever too worried.
I know you'll fight anyone, but at this point, with the fact that Umar, the fight sort of got taken off, do you sort of see a fight with you and him probably being down the line for a title now, as opposed to a fight that you would actually have, like at this point, just because of where you are in the rankings?
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think that I try to, I don't know. I try to be real reasonable with like working with the UFC. Like, okay, like, hey, like I'll do this for you guys this time. Like you guys don't. And every time I've ever worked with the UFC in that manner, it's always been like really reasonable on their end, and I feel like on my end too. Like those guys are really smart. Like Hunter, Dana, Shelby, like they're all really smart guys. So they're like reasonable, and yeah, I mean, potentially maybe me and Umar will fight in the future. To be honest, it's kind of hard to like really, really see how good someone is until they've been in it for a little bit.
Yeah.
I came out the gate 5-0 and then like lost real bad, against one of the top guys. So it's kind of hard to tell. Like I definitely think that Umar has to cut, like whenever he gets back from his surgery, I think that he's going to have to fight a few times, I think, in order to, get bumped back up. But yeah.
Do you think Song Yadong is the right opponent? Rob was supposed to fight Song. Song sort of ranked in that sort of mid range as well. Do you think matchmaking wise, if they're both healthy at the same time, that would make sense? I know it's not your job to be a matchmaker, but I think that kind of was what the conclusion that people came to, is that hey, they both lost their opponents. They should probably fight each other.
Yeah, potentially. Honestly, man, I think that Song should fight, maybe even up a little bit. I think Song's real good, dude. Like, especially having fought him. Like, I think he's like really like a really good martial artist, and I almost want to see him fight like up more. Like, I would really like to see him take on. Like, I don't know why they don't do Cejudo and Song. Like, that would be a really awesome
Do you
fight.
think Cejudo would take that fight though?
Who cares what Cejudo wants, honestly?
I know. Well, I'm just saying at this stage in his
Yeah,
career, it seems like he only you know what I mean? Like kind of big names or fighters that are really high up in the rankings. That's all.
yeah, I mean, yeah, from like his perspective, but from like the perspective of like being reasonable, like I don't really think that he gets to cherry pick the fights that he
Yeah.
really feels like he deserves or he wants or whatever. Like you just lost to the champ, like after being retired and being off for a couple of years, and like you should have to fight some guys in order to get that title shot again. I don't think that you should just get it again, but that's me like kind of shitting on a guy, which I'm trying not to do because when the more I think about it, the more I realize when we're kind of all in this pool shooting for the same goal, what it kind of turns into is just like those political commercials where that you see where
Yeah.
like all of the politicians talking bad about all of the other politicians instead of
Yeah.
talking how awesome they are, which I know, I mean, I don't like it, but I hate watching those commercials, but I had that like realization recently, especially after this last one where I knew that a lot of my like future opponents and people in the same kind of pool as me were, like shitting on me a little bit, and I was like, man, like we got to stop doing this because this is just exactly what all the politicians do. And I don't like
Yeah.
politics. So, but yeah, I'm trying not to. I'm trying not to.
Okay, let's talk about the actual fight itself. I was curious once you knew that you were. I know you had the injury sort of going into it, but also like during the fight, I'm sure it got really aggravated. Did the game plan change at all once you realized you were hurt? Like, how did that affect you in the fight?
Yeah, so I wasn't necessarily injured. Like I was dealing with some bursitis, but bursitis is like kind of minimal as far as
Okay, gotcha.
like a big deal, But what the doctor explained to me could have been a potential thing, which I didn't even realize or think about going into the fight, is I got cellulitis really bad in some of that bursitis because the bursitis got infected.
Mhm.
And apparently some infection can really like weaken that joint and weaken all the things that are in that area. So the doctor and I think that like that's likely why it like tore so easy. But while I'm in the fight in the first round, it was sometime like we had a grappling exchange. Rob stood back up, and then like I threw a punch with it, and I remember being like, I don't know what that is, because it didn't feel like it was elbow. Like I had been dealing with bursitis, so I knew what elbow felt like, but it felt like more in my tricep, and I was like, I don't know if that, like I just couldn't figure out what that was. So in my head, I'm like, well, don't mess with it. Like this is round one. Like just don't use your arm for now. Like use it in the spots that you need, but like don't chuck right hands when you don't really know what's going on with that arm. And then it was about into the second round where I was like, oh, this thing's jacked up, and like I remember it just like I don't register pain when I'm fighting, but I do register like something being off, and it felt really weak. Like
Mhm.
anytime I would go to like hit him with it, it just felt like I was like just like tapping him.
Mhm.
My body was almost like fighting, trying to use it too. So, yeah, it kind of sucked, and it definitely changed the game plan for sure. Like when I'm on top, I think that I like really can pound people out, but I wasn't really able to with that arm. And then also on top of it, I was like, hey, dude, it's only the second round. Like you gotta make sure that you're good and that he doesn't know that you're hurt, or else he's gonna try to expose that. And so yeah, there was a lot of things going through my head, and it's kind of hard to like do it while I'm actually in like the middle of a fight. But I remember it being real not feeling good, and me being like, it's not a good idea to continue to use that. So
Yeah. No, it makes sense. Do you also feel like people are overlooking the fact Rob's been finished once in his UFC career? In fact, I think in his entire career, and it was to Pedro Munoz. It was a first round submission loss back in 2017. Like, do you feel people kind of overlook that the guy you fought is not easy to take out? Even Aldo couldn't finish him.
yeah, yeah, I think Rob's real good. Like yeah, I like at the end of the fight, I was like, okay, it's round 5, like go for a submission. Like even if you hurt it more, whatever it is that's going on, like
Mhm.
try to finish him. And I actually almost got the Darce, even though it was a totally inappropriate time to kind of shoot that Darce. But I almost got it, and I like he was squirming real hard, and I was like, I might get this, I might get this. And then he got out. So he fought hard all the way to the end. He just didn't have like enough of an understanding of like what it is that I was doing to hold him down. Uh, and that's just like a technical thing. But he fought hard the whole time.
Yeah, no, he certainly did. And my understanding is you did speak to Dana after, and everything's good, right? You guys sort of, because you explained like, hey, I'm injured here. Like, we might have not had a main event if things were really bad, right? So,
Well, I texted him. I was like, hey, dude, like, because so when I watched the fight, round 1, I was like, cool, like that was good. Round 2, I was like, cool, okay, that was good. Like great timing on the shots, holding them down was awesome. And then you get 15 more minutes of the exact same thing, and it becomes not so cool anymore. Like
mhm.
even when I'm watching like reading people's tweets about it or whatever, which I've stopped doing.
Yeah,
But
you can't do that. You'll never feel good about that.
mistake. But as I was reading them, even everyone was on board with the grappling until about the third round when it was the same shit over and over again. So after watching it, I kind of sided with the fans. I was like, yeah, dude, I don't really want to put on fights like that. Like me personally, that's like not the type of guy that I want to be. I also had to be nice to myself because I know that I downplay everything, like every big situation kind of in life. I like downplay because I'm not a really dramatic guy, but like I had to kind of give myself some grace and be like, dude, you tore your tricep. Like
Yeah.
in other sports, if that happens, like you get pulled from the game and you don't get to fight for the whole season, or you don't get to play for the rest of the season. Like in basketball, if you tear your tricep, like you're out. So I fought 4 rounds with the torn tricep, and I was just texting Dana, and I explained to him, I was like, hey man, like that's, you know, like I hurt my tricep in the first round. I'll never be in another fight like that again. I promise you, you know, and I promise the fans I'll never be in a fight like that again. But just given the circumstance and the injury, there was not a lot that I could do about that. You know? And I know that it sucks because it had the potential to be a really awesome fight. And then Dana was just like, yeah, man, not every fight can be a barn burner, like heal up. And I was like, cool, okay. Glad that means it.
Yeah, that's better than you know, him saying something else. So that's good. Now it's my understanding you're getting surgery tomorrow, right? When are you going under the knife?
They called me the day before and tell me what time it is, so I haven't gotten that phone call yet. But yeah, so tomorrow I get my surgery, and then it's like 2 weeks in a sling, and then I start rehab. 3 months in, I get to start like using it some like decently. And then 6 months in, I'm 100% healed. So that's not even that bad of an injury. You know, like I could work around the elbow. It's not like a knee or an ankle or anything where I won't be able to walk right for a couple months. So I'm good. I'll work around it. I'll keep getting better.
Are you still cornering Justin Wetzel this weekend? I know he's fighting, and I know he was going to be in your corner, but you got to go under the knife. Like, I don't think that's probably very good if you're going to be traveling and stuff, right?
I asked the doc. He said it's cool if I get on an airplane. Nice. So, yep. So I'm going to head out and corner Wetzel on, I leave Friday morning, I think. So I'll be out of surgery Thursday and then head out and help him on
Look at
Friday.
you. What a good teammate right there. There's actually a couple teammates on your card. Claire Guthrie's on there. Who else? I know they added another fighter on there too. I forget his name, but yeah, there's a few guys on that card, right? So.
Yep. Josh Marsh is the other
Josh guy. Marsh. Sorry, my apologies, Josh, for watching this. You know, you sort of talked about it there after the fight, and I think most people realize this, like a title shot has to be next, I would think. I don't know who else they could really give it to. You've got Henry and Merab, but again, you took this fight in a main event, and, you know, it makes a lot of sense. We've got the title fight coming up, obviously, next week. I think the timing would kind of work out. I don't think, you know, they're in a rush to get the title defense happening. Anyways, long-winded answer, you know, sort of question short here. Do you think the timing will work out with you recovering and then potentially fighting for the title next year? You're a bit worried that maybe they want to rush the first title defense after this.
No, I'm not too worried either way. I think that when I come back and I'm healthy, I think that the UFC will still give me the title shot. Even if, you know, like there's a lot of question marks because Aljamain's saying that he's going to leave the division. So whether or not he actually does that is a question. And then whether or not that he actually wins is another question. So honestly, man, in MMA, like you can't even think 3 months ahead of time because it's just, it's changing all the time. So I honestly don't know, but I think that they like getting the title fights going, you know, like they don't like waiting around for people. So even if it is one, like it's okay. I think that I'll still come back and be able to fight for the title. And I think that they'll understand that, you know, the fight was what it was because of the circumstance.
You're going to Boston, right? You're going to be cage side?
Yep, I'm going to go out to Boston. Yep.
Will they let you in the cage with the sling? This is something you got to talk about because you're not going to cause a ruckus, Cory. I know you well enough.
I don't think that they're going to let me in the cage.
But they let O'Malley in, and they let Adesanya in when he fought with who was it? I think it was the Dracus and Whitaker fight. They let him in.
Yeah, and I don't think that they liked how either of those situations went.
But knowing you though, like I don't think you're the type of guy to really cause. Like I can't, Cory, correct me if I'm wrong here. I don't remember ever seeing you in any sort of controversy with anything at all. You're almost Canadian, like me, you know.
Yeah, I mean, no, they're not going to, but and I don't even know if I'd be down for something like that.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's the main thing. Do you actually want to do it? I mean, some fighters don't, right? Because it's, you know, nice sitting at your seat. You don't have to worry about that stuff. I know you told me this before. You're still going with Sterling next Saturday as far as a pick in that fight?
Yeah, that's the safer pick. That's like the one that if I was a bet man, I'd maybe put my money on. But O'Malley could win. You know, like he definitely could win. I think keeping space for 25 minutes against someone that's really awkward and unorthodox like Aljamain is not a really easy task. So, and I also don't know where he's going to do a lot of his scoring either. Like it's one thing to not get taken down, but it's another thing to actually win the bout. So he has to like not only defend all the shots, but he also has to like do things that make him win. And I just don't really foresee him being able to do too much of that without Sterling being able to close the distance.
Is it kind of bittersweet because obviously if Sterling wins, like you said, he might go up to 45. If O'Malley wins, you won't necessarily get that rematch because I'm sure you do want the rematch against Sterling at some point.
Yeah, I would like it, but I'm not like losing any sleep over not getting it or whatever, you know, like it was years ago. I was a very, very different fighter at the time. I don't really feel like I have too much to prove to people either about like how much further I've come as far as my skills and just my mental and just me as an overall fighter and martial artist in general. I don't feel like I have like too much of a chip on my shoulder anyways, but if that fight does line up again, I would definitely be incredibly motivated to beat him and go through a camp getting ready for a guy like Sterling to where I get to, you know, get some revenge on him.
How do you think Sterling would do if he was at featherweight as opposed to bantamweight?
He might do okay.
It's tough division though at the top, especially some of those. You got Holloway and Volk, and you know Topuria now has looked great. Like,
yeah, I'd be really interested to see how Sterling does without. Well, actually, I mean, we're all pretty big for the division, so right. You know, I maybe I shouldn't. Yeah, I don't know how he'd do honestly. The 45 division kind of doesn't seem as deep as a 5 division, so he kind of has that going for him. But I don't really know, to be honest. I think that Volkanovski would beat him in a fight, but I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure how he'd do against the rest of the guys.
I know the quest for you is to get gold at 35. Do you ever see yourself going back up to 145?
Potentially, but like I said, man, day at a time in MMA because change all the time.
Okay, something I was upset about in our last interview that I didn't get to ask you. This is on my end, by the way, not upset at you, obviously. There's this quote. I'm going to read it right now, and I need to get to the bottom of this. I forget which fight it was, but you had this quote here that said, "Hopefully I'm hearing of a fight soon so I can quit smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day and not be so sad every time someone asks me about it." Do you actually smoke, or was that a joke?
No, I don't smoke 3 packs of cigarettes.
I was going to say that would have been like the shocker of all shockers because you've got some really good cardio. Mind you, I've seen in my day, I remember back in high school, there was a couple guys that I, they used to smoke a lot and they were like beating us and all the, the long distance running. But yeah, I didn't think you smoked because I'm sure we would have heard about it at some point.
No, I'm not. I mean, I enjoy like a cigar every now and then, especially because I don't really
That's different. Yeah.
Weed or anything. So I mean, if I do want like an escape, sometimes I'll like smoke a cigar here and there, but that's like not smoking packs of cigarettes a day.
And you said you do or don't smoke marijuana?
I don't really.
Really? Out in Colorado?
No, not really. I mean, I'm not like a nun. Like I'll do it if I feel like it, but I'm not like a
recreation. You're not like one of your teammates over there. Don't need to mention. Actually, no. I mean, I don't think it's a big deal. Curtis, I know, smokes a lot. So
yeah.
But that's to each their own as well.
Guy or I don't like feeling not optimal, so I do things that take me out of like being optimal.
There you go. That's fair. Austin Hubbard, how cool is that on seeing him on The Ultimate Fighter? He's in the finals now.
Dude, Austin's got to be one of like the under the radar guys that's just like super awesome and really inspiring. One, Austin's just like a cool guy. Like you got to root for him, but 2, I mean, his story is really awesome. Like fought some of the toughest guys in the UFC, won some, lost some, got cut, lost his brother, which was a really, really big deal. And actually, I think Austin made a post today. It's the 1-year anniversary of that. So, my heart's with him a little bit today. But, I mean, Austin's story is just awesome. And then he got like called to the Ultimate Fighter just like kind of out of nowhere. Got on, and actually before he even got on the show, me and all the coaches were talking, and we were like, dude, I think Austin's going to win, and that's going to be such an incredible story. Like just everything that Austin's gone through in his personal life with his brother, with like the UFC, getting cut, coming back, like it's amazing. I think he's going to win too. Austin's like one of my favorite guys ever to watch. Yeah.
No, it's good for him. And before we go, obviously, I probably will not talk to you before the wedding. I think it's September 1st or around there or something. That's the date. What fighters are going to be attending your wedding?
Neil will be there. Austin will be there. A few guys on the team like Wetzel, Lavelle, Muhammad Naimov, I think, is coming.
And are you doing a bachelor party or no? You're not into that?
I might. Not really. Nah, I'm not really into that, man. I don't want to ask people to spend a bunch of money to come out to Colorado and like.
Everyone does like axe throwing. I feel like that's like the big bachelor party these days. You know what I mean? Like that's so stereotypical now. I didn't do that for my bachelor party. I did a lot of other stuff, but axe throwing, I've been to a few of those for bachelor parties. Is that something you would be into?
No, I've gone to a bachelor party where we did throw axes.
There
Actually,
you go.
I'm trying to set something up at this place called Casa Bonita that just reopened in Colorado. It was on South Park a bunch. The owners from South Park, or the guys that created South Park, actually bought out the Casa Bonita because it's like this weird like staple of Colorado growing up kind of in the 90s and the 2000s. So they actually just reopened that, and I hear it's really, really awesome. So I might just have like a dinner and a hangout at Casa Bonita if I
There
can
you go. Sounds like
yeah,
a good time.
there's a long list, but I hopefully I can get in. I don't know.
There you go. Cory, thanks so much for doing this, man. Speedy recovery. Hopefully surgery goes well and all that stuff. If there's anything you want to mention before we get out of here, whether it's sponsors or social media or any cool stuff, any cool books you're reading, maybe recommend those. I'll give you the last word.
I'm reading comic books. Watchmen is really good. I just came out with a bunch of instructionals that are on my website, CorySandhagenMMA.com. Just striking instructionals, some MMA stuff, but mostly striking. And yeah, just keep watching my fights, and hopefully I won't get hurt in the next one, and it'll be a lot more exciting.